Welcome to Talks on Tuesdays with me. I'm Chelsea Richins, and with Barbara Solomon and Mary Chase. And thank you, Christine and Jean and Renee, for joining us today. And I imagine we might have a few other people hop on in the next few minutes. And we're all familiar with each other. And so I thought today I would talk about the Michael Singer books that Gillian Fleer had recommended we read. And I've read all three of Michael's books. His first one was called The Untethered Soul. And then welcome, Julie. And everyone, feel free to be unmuted and jump in anytime. Feel free. I want this to feel like we're all sitting around a living room and just sharing in a conversation.
I know I just came on, but I heard you talking about the Untethered Soul, and I don't know what you said before that, but I am reading the Surrender Experiment right now. I've already read the other one, not the newest one. So what did
the first Untethered Soul?
Yeah.
I read the Surrender Experiment too. It's like a good kind of autobiographical. It tells
how he got where he is. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't know how you maintain that kind of meditation, but anyway.
Yeah.
Since we're all sitting here in a living room, I'm going to go get another cup of coffee. I'll be right.
Bring me.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, just to put kind of the Michael Singer way of thinking in a nutshell, he seems to be, I describe him as very practical on a how-to of how to deal with your day-to-day life. And he's all about taking what the world serves up for you each day and looking at it as an observer and realizing the world is not happening to you, you are happening in the world. And it's all kind of summed up in this one quote of his. And I'm reading from page 25 of Living Untethered. And it says, "One of the most amazing things you will ever realize is the moment in front of you is not bothering you. You are bothering yourself about the moment in front of you." And I kind of only highlighted a few things, but I did highlight one paragraph, and I thought I would read it and then see if it was be a good conversation starter. And this is from chapter 20. And it's, if you ever really want to know how your preferences manage to make life a negative experience, go build a house and decide to paint the kitchen walls white. Did you know that there are more than 50 shades of white? Just wait until you try to pick the white you want. In other words, there is only one tiny window of color choice that will align with your preferences and make you happy. All of the rest will just upset you. Just look at the odds you're up against. There are billions of things that in life that don't match your preferences. And these are only a few, and there are only a few things that do. Under these conditions, the probability that life is going to be a negative experience is extremely high. This is not because life is negative. It is because the only thing that isn't negative to you is that which exactly matches your preferences. This is so important to understand. You have set up a system in which you can't win. You have expanded what can bother you to include all experiences that remind you of what bothered you before. what is more, life almost never totally satisfies you because everything has to be exactly the way you want it. This shows you the power of the past and present in your preferences. The more preferences they have, the less you'll be okay. And I was thinking about this morning because in a lot of ways, I think of my mother-in-law and how life doesn't match her preferences. But I had an aha moment. I realized that I am not happy with my mother-in-law's way of life. So therefore,
Well,
that's my preference, that the way she doesn't align doesn't match up for me. And I was able to step back just a little bit more. And we read things in books and then we think we know the right way to go. And then we start like looking at other people in our life, but it really has to do with us.
I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I go, oh, this would be good for so-and-so. And then I
Right.
go, wait a minute. Well, maybe it would be good for me. You know? Yeah. I'll look at myself instead of, fixing other people like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
that was
find it-
actually a great realization. Oh, go ahead, Christine.
Sorry, I find it interesting too how this can relate to boundaries and enmeshing and codependency, which are all things I'm learning about in my own family right now. And also the book, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.'s book, The 5 Levels of Attachment, and how much we can self-identify with things that are external to us to make ourselves feel more worthy or enough. And I'm reading all these books right now, so this is a lot of fun for me. I appreciate this conversation. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And I think Barbara and Mary and I were talking this week. It's such a toggling. How much doing is there to do? And how much is it just being?
Right. Yeah, finding that balance is sometimes a little challenging. But yeah, I think that, oh, here comes Cecilia. Yay. I think that when we are able to find that balance and do, but still stay in that being place, it's more satisfying. And then we don't have to say, oh, that person should be doing this. Instead of, oh, I could be doing this. Hi, Cecilia.
Hey, Cecilia, we're talking about Michael Singer.
Michael Singer, great.
Yeah. And finding the balance between doing and being.
And sometimes we put tools in our toolbox. Yeah. And it's a great, we set out and we do certain things, or maybe we don't, and we just accept and just, be more of being. But one thing I've also realized this week is whichever way we go, we're still trying to arrive at the same spot of peace and wholeness and love and acceptance of what's going on.
So are you talking about just letting things unfold? Are you saying that when you expect things out of life and you want to mold them the way you want them, but then instead of doing that, you allow things to just happen and unfold the way they're supposed to, or where they're going to?
I think they both have the same destination in mind.
Yeah. I'm good. I guess I'm kind of changing the subject only because we're talking about Michael Singer, and it's so funny that you brought him up, because I kept thinking, in the gathering on Monday, I'd like I could bring up this what I'm reading about him, what he's talking about, what I'm reading now, which is about dialogue and the voices that go on in your mind constantly. And I mean, I guess it in a way it will all tie together, and how we sort of, and we've talked about this before, but how we sort of ruled, and we're so used to hearing these voices, we don't even realize we're hearing them. Our voice, whose voice is it? Is, you know, what he talks about. Who is that?
Mhm.
Who's talking all the time, constantly in your voice, in your head?
Yeah.
And then how to be and be, let that voice be behind you, sort of, and live your life more presently, I think, you know, in the now, which I find, you know, it's a struggle, but very interesting when he talks about that.
Yeah.
For me, it's also how much stuff, how many ideas, how many memories we allow to be burdens
Mm.
instead of seeing them for what they are. Like in my case, I'm surrounded by a bunch of crap that needs to be dealt with this week physically, whether it's given away or sold or something, but it's just an arrangement of molecules. They don't matter. If this place burned down tomorrow and I got an insurance check, I would say, oh, great, I get to start over. But if I get into a dumpster, that's a horrible thing. Is the perception of stuff, which is actually, these are all awareness. They're not even really molecules. So it's just so complex and yet so simple.
Yeah. I know, I sometimes fantasize maybe I could live out of an RV.
Me too. Yes.
And that seems like the way to go. But how, one hand, I think I can live in an RV, and the other hand, I can't even organize the things I have in my 1,500 square foot house.
I can't even deal with my purse. My purse always in the back seat of someone's.
Yes.
I'll try packing for a trip in a little, you know, carry-on, and for a week for me, it was like, oh my God, you know. So yeah, and I think I can identify with that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I find that when I work on or am aware of being present right now, a lot of that other stuff kind of falls away because there's no like space for it, I think. You know, we're just so involved with what's right in front of us and being that, at least for me, it just takes all my attention. You know, I mean, I don't live that way, but I try to more and more as much as I can.
Mhm.
It
Yep.
makes things easier, I think. Cecilia, I think you're somebody who kind of lives that way too. I mean, that's the sense I get just from listening to you.
I love the quiet. At the same time, though, I know I've chosen to be in this body so I can experience other things. I love the excitement. I love the dance. I love the music. I love all of that too. But I do love the quiet. And I find myself seeking that out most of the time. But I love the fun of it all. And I seek that out too. So,
And we should have both of those.
Yes.
Why
Yeah.
not? You know,
Totally.
there's time when you want to find that still point, and then there's times where you want to be in the finite life that you're in, and enjoy the things you love, and bring that creative energy that you have, that we all have,
Mhm.
in a more expansive way. You know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can still do that by being present in the now too, you know, just the experience. I mean,
Oh.
like right now being with you guys. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
And
think-
something that was
Sorry.
said earlier, it made me think of an Abraham Hicks comment that she says, you know, there's so many people out there who we think are just real jerks and they do things we don't understand, and it's like, oh, how can they do that? And her observation is everybody's doing everything that they can because they think that in some way or another it will make them feel better. They're all trying to find, I think you were talking about this, Chelsea, you know, they're trying to find that sweet spot. And different people go about doing that in different ways. And when I remember that, it helps me to be a little bit more forgiving. You know, last week, Gina, you were talking about just be kind to people, you know, give them a little leeway and slack. And that is one way for me to help remember, you know, we're all kind of just trying to do the best we can.
Yes.
You know.
But remembering then is bringing that awareness to the front, which is good. You know, I think the more you do that, because I do that as well. You know, I had a doctor's appointment yesterday and it was at 2:15 and I didn't get seen until like 5 to 3, almost 3. It was like, God, but I just sat there and sort of, you know, instead I've said I could get pissed off or I can just like, you know, they're probably really busy and that's the reason and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and I think the more you do that, hopefully the easier it will get. And maybe eventually it'll just kind of be more natural to how you are and in reacting to certain circumstances in your life that at one time really would just piss you off. Would react instead of act. I don't know.
Yep, it's those moments sitting in a waiting room at a doctor's office, and then you catch your thinking mind saying, I am not very happy with this wait.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
see yourself, and then you're like, well, that is silly. That's so out of my control. I can let
Right.
that.
Exactly. Right.
That's funny. I know that a lot of people have fidgety things that they have to do, and so they can't sit still. They have to be doing something. And I know my sister, she carries this little crochet disc. It's like a little frisbee.
Is
But
everyone
whenever she's in a
frozen?
situation where she's just sitting in like a waiting room or whatever, she'll take that little crochet thing and start tossing it around the room, and everybody starts playing with her. And it's really funny. So it's like she just needs to do something and engage people. So it's really funny that she does that.
Celia, you froze for me, or I froze, so I kind of missed the beginning of that. Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about my sister. She likes to,
Oh.
she carries this little crochet disc in her purse. And so if
Ah.
she's in a place where she just needs to be doing something, she just starts tossing it around and people play with her.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used growing up when my kids were young and attending school functions. I had a friend in the neighborhood named Meg, and she was so much better than me. She always had something to do with her, and she was multitasking. And I'm kind of thinking of her now, and I realize that I was so wrong about myself. Just being okay with doing nothing was okay. She was the type that would, if it was October and we were at a soccer game, she would be there with her Christmas cards. I thought it was the ideal way to be, but I'm looking back on that now, and I think I was okay just being and doing nothing in the moment at the soccer game or present with the child out on the soccer field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that our experiences become so much more when we're in the moment being present. Like our 5 senses or our 6 senses, if we want to use the intuition as well, are that much more when we are in the present moment, able to experience them at their full value.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah.
True. True.
Yeah, I think multitasking is overrated. Yeah, I mean, there's a time and place sometimes for it, but you're right, Christine. Just especially if you're at a kids' event and you want to, they know, if you're aware of what's going
Oh
on.
yeah, true, true. And productivity, I was always in such a internal turmoil about needing to be productive to get my whole to-do list done, and I was so OCD about it that even just baking in the kitchen, sometimes I'd be a complete nervous wreck because I had the next thing to do. And learning to be present is just, it's so freeing. It's so incredibly freeing. It feels you're at peace, you're in love, you're loving yourself, you're loving life. It's the best thing ever.
Yes. But I enjoy being in the kitchen. I love cooking and I love,
Yes.
but I turn on music and I'm just there in my
Ah.
space by myself and I'm just cooking
Do,
and
do you
listening to
dance
music.
around, Cecilia? That's what I do.
I sometimes do, yes.
Yeah, just being one with the baking, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You want.
So on the same topic of Michael Singer, one big takeaway for me after reading the books, an aha moment I had was, I still have a really big digital clock in my bedroom, kind of left over from the days where I took care of my grandpa. Like it's like really big for people who are half blind. Well, anyway, I see that clock when I wake up from in the morning or a nap, and it's always telling me the time of day. And usually I open my eyes, I look at that clock, and here comes my to-do list of what I need to do that day, what's next. But my kind of a little mantra that I've created is, I woke up one time, it was a nap. I looked at that clock and I didn't start the recordings of my voice in my head, and I just looked at it and I thought, just clock. Like it's just a clock. Like it's just, it means nothing. It doesn't mean nothing. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
It didn't
sometimes
trigger your list. It didn't
I-
trigger your list.
sometimes like just clock.
Nice.
Like it really, like it has no real meaning beyond that. It's all the meaning we assign to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Kind of the same as just a cloud. We don't really have to, talk about how it's blocking the sun and ruining our day. It's just a cloud.
True.
Doing,
Just,
Jean?
just thinking how happy I am that I don't have a clock that shows me time of life. Like, how much you got left? I live my life completely differently if I knew I was going to be 100 and I had 29 years left. So I can slow down a little bit.
That's funny.
I had an experience with my landlady when I lived in San Francisco, and she was this, very short Italian woman. She was probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years older than me, and she had a thick Italian accent. Whenever I spoke with her, I was struggling without letting her know, what are you saying, right? Anyway, so I had a good rapport with her, however, and I was the only tenant in the building that would sweep the stairs and the front walk and the leaves and all that. I would just do that for her. And because I like being a good tenant, I like contributing. So I asked her, can I repaint my apartment? And she said, yes, of course. So I have a long history of being a good painter, painting walls and stuff. I was raised that way. So I thought this should be easy enough. It's a 1-bedroom apartment. I can do this. So I got the paint and I repainted it, and it was white. And my preference was everywhere I go, all the walls are white. And that's the standard thing that landlords want, white. I didn't tell her I was going to paint it a different color.
Yeah.
So, but one thing I'm not is an interior decorator. I have terrible taste. So I decided, I like yellow. So I repainted the entire apartment yellow, but it wasn't a soft yellow. It wound up being a very harsh, in-your-face yellow, right?
Vibrant, vibrant.
So I got it all done. I was so proud of myself because I'm an impeccable painter. And I says, well, all right, I guess it's better than white. I can live with it. So she came by one day and knocked on my door, and I opened the door and I says, oh, Maria, I finished painting. Come look. And she comes in and she says, I said, what do you think? She says, oh my God, I hate it. I hate it. Oh my God, she was so upset with me, like I was the worst human being in the planet. So I said, I'm so sorry, Maria. I didn't mean to upset you. I said, okay, listen, don't worry about it. I'll repaint it and we'll make it all right. She says, you better, it's terrible. She left. So back to the paint store I went, and guess what color I got? White.
Wait.
So I wound up repainting the whole thing, and then I showed her, and she says, "Oh, that's a better. Okay, fine." So anyway, in that process, though, even though that was a lot of hard work, I thought, you can give up your attachment here. Just stop living so much in attachment. You have a nice apartment. The landlady is a nice person, except for that one time. And so, I mean, there was a lesson in attachment big one, because it took me so much time and effort and labor to do this. And then, of course, I'm attached to that she's going to love this yellow paint, right? So, and, it just brings to mind, too, that there are, 8 billion people on the planet. And, we talk about beliefs and belief systems, but we also have a lot of preferences. All of us do. I don't know if you could count how many preferences we have, like we can count the population. It might be, beyond any number we could have ever created. So, yeah, I think, we can release a lot of attachments to preferences too, in our own lives or other people's preferences, like my landlady. It can be done. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. That's such a beautiful realization, Gina.
Thanks.
I hear our music.
Yeah, that's nice.
I just want to tell you, next week is Halloween, and we're going to be doing a Halloween show. So if anybody has any tales they think they're going to be telling, be thinking about them and tell your.
Yeah. Or if you just want to come listen. Yeah.
Lovely.
Thanks for joining us, you
Great
guys.
to be here.
Thanks, everyone.
Jane and Renee and Julie and Cecilia, my loves.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.